Chapter 3. The Middleman and Trade. In primitive barter, even when money begins to intervene, there is no dominance of any party over any other. Each knows his own positive interest and need, and closes the bargain willingly, with open eyes, thinking it, on the whole, to his own advantage. This advantage will not be equal on both sides. The need to sell may be greater than the wish to buy. Resources and foresight may be unequal in the two bargainers. One may be making a clear gain, and the other only postponing disaster. Yet even the latter acts freely, and is not fleeced anonymously, without his knowledge or consent. Money, while a great convenience, in exchange, a middle term pregnant with terrible dangers, without attempting to enumerate or to trace these dangers, which would involve a whole treatise on trade. May here notice one circumstance, which politically is most remarkable. When there is a common currency, a third party, a middleman, may intervene in all exchanges. He may know nothing, except verbally and in terms of money, of the needs and interests of any other class. His own interest and need will be simply to buy his wares cheap and to sell them dear. To get the advantage in bargains at both ends will be his whole art and profession, and that element of inequality in making exchanges, which was an inevitable personal accident in primitive barter, now becomes the sole means of living for the middleman, be he peddler, shopkeeper, merchant, or banker. Trade has become an art in itself, and has bred a whole set of social classes living on an invisible toll, which they levy on all people's affairs. It had become the art of making money. This abstract form of industry, or finance, is a byproduct of concrete commercial enterprise, and not necessary to it. The pure essence of a merchant and whose eventual domination over mankind may be seen most clearly when he is an intrepid adventurer, sailing to remote countries and dealing with alien peoples. Then his joy is to be the first to discover some savage strand where pearls may be had in exchange for glass beads, furs for colored tissue paper, or an elephant's tusk for a bottle of rum. So long as this sort of barter is possible, merchants are men of enterprise, loving finery and rare knowledge. Blue seaports prosper, and colonies pay. Competition, however, soon exhausts those virgin markets, and trade settles down to a normal, prosaic level, as if love had passed into wedlock. The merchant is no longer called a merchant, but a dealer or a businessman. He makes no perilous voyages. There are few perilous voyages to make. Ships are insured, and merchandise also. The owners are probably unknown shareholders or maiden ladies living on annuities, while the partners, or directors, are only officials on fixed salaries. They do not sail the ocean blue, but sit in an office, telephone in hand, waiting for the next report from the stock exchange, or dictating perfunctory business letters to a frizzled and pouting typist. The profits of prosaic trade, in normal cases, may then loosely represent services rendered in distributing merchandise and making it accessible to the public. Enterprise now appears rather an invention of mechanical contrivances, partly to cheapen production, partly to introduce new products. It is evidently not enough to invent a new machine. It must either have a use for existing purposes, or it must, by its novelty and pleasantness, become in itself, like the radio, a new object of passion, to diminish the tedium and multiply the commitments of civic life. The ultimate, the moral, use of such inventions might be hard to determine, but in practice there is no need of doing so. The inventor has his own vanity and pecuniary interest at heart, and the agents that disseminate his invention also have a pecuniary interest of their own to consider. Advertisement, propaganda, missionary work then introduce the new trick amongst the innocent million and develop a new demand. The point is to capture the public, and then, by force of fashion and custom, to induce the public to perpetuate your business. Society is then dominated by the producer's interest, and trade proper takes a secondary and inglorious place. Capitalists and bankers are merchants sublimated and reduced to the abstract function of doing nothing but invest their money in order to increase its nominal total. Commerce is encouraged by the gentlemen in all markets at once, as far as their influence extends. They have no ships, unless it be a private yacht. They have no warehouse or shop, but an office furnished like a club, and they have no special kind of merchandise. All their business is overhead business, and all their profits, overhead profits. They are international in mind, like the proletariat. They see in everything merely its value in money. Nothing, therefore, has any quality in their eyes except its quantity. Their incomes, which are sucked out of all their transactions impartially, tend in turn to be spent impartially in all climates upon all luxuries. They are probably patrons of the fine arts everywhere, and if they smile upon or even practice any special religion, it is precisely that form of it which, like a varnish, has the least smell or color and gives the most polish. Even for the subject population, commerce breaks down local barriers. It brings nationalities together, not only physically in the great seaports, but ideally in the public mind. And it does so not as war does, or religion might, by exaggerating the foreignness of the foreigner or the unbeliever, and breeding the desire to abolish him. Commerce, on the contrary, after the first predatory and adventurous phase is past, assimilates trading nations to one another, and creates an economic organism larger than the political and moral one, and rooted in all the nations employing their services. Those local organisms, moral and political, come to seem to the commercial mind accidental and perhaps troublesome, where they impede at all the pervasive and equalizing prevalence of trade. A cosmopolitan upper class then grows up, all speaking well or ill the same fashionable languages, and cultivating the same fashionable manners. Or a cosmopolitan middle class, like the Jews, already diffused throughout the world, and dedicated to commerce, may rise to the top, and may undertake to subordinate all nations and religions to international cooperation and prosperity. And rising to the top, this cosmopolitan middle class takes over the arts and sciences and the literary activities native to the older societies, and often manipulates them cleverly with an air of superior enlightenment. But this is merely the subjective superiority of the incurable foreigner, who has no roots in the society he studies and has cut himself off from his own roots. Indeed, the commercial mind has no apprehension of roots of any kind, and moves on the verbal plane of conventional maxims and utopian prophecies. This does not prevent it from inspiring respect in the half-educated public, proud to have outgrown old-fashioned ideas which militant intellect never possessed and cannot understand. In progress and wealth, with all its intellectual luxuries and visible gains, like those of a man winning the big prize in the lottery, yet even wealth seldom comes to the uprooted and satisfying measure. All the ethos and dignity of the past seem to them absurd or even pernicious. Thus the commercial mind imposes itself on the urban and suburban population, living in chance rooms or hired houses, easily migrating, picking up work individually, perhaps without friends or family, and guided intellectually by the newspapers, themselves a commercial enterprise, full of information, colored by party bias. The aims and sentiments expressible publicly before such a population are far more superficial and ignoble than those natural to the individuals composing it. Even the leaders, in their speeches and proclamations, feel compelled to repeat empty phrases that at least alienate nobody. All they require is that their tone should encourage hope in the multitude, and perhaps in themselves. Those who suspect the fallacy, or feel some cross-inspiration, may learn to put those doubts away as temptations, and be actually ashamed of them. Thus, the grossest vanity and cheapest rhetoric are likely to carry the day politically, yet they are not likely to carry it socially or permanently. An old civilization sails with enough hidden ballast to neutralize the volleys of a random crew. 4 futile republics, for instance, have not upset the balance of the French nation. The very superficiality of a commercial stratum for commerce is not necessary to life, prevents a thorough domination, in its part, over society. If it dominated, it would dissolve society altogether. Yet there is a moment when a healthy community, rule, and military profits by the influence of commerce, and is enriched by it in culture as well as extended in power. A rural population may have had its religion and its minstrelsy, but philosophical debate and the more critical forms of the fine arts require the concourse of many differing minds and of contrary traditions. The idle rich, supported by commercial fortunes, travel more and are better informed than is the military caste or a local seminary. They elude the domination of any religious orthodoxy. They may even become connoisseurs and counterfeit aristocrats with a veneer of facile refinement, if not of distinction. Meanwhile, beneath them, within and beyond a belt of suburban villas, a large commercial class imitates their culture and makes a point of distinguishing itself from the artisan and wage-earning class by cultivating a certain degree of emancipated mental vivacity. They offer a fertile field for party views and theoretical persuasions of every description. They know nothing and criticize everything. Yet their commercial background still demands a modicum of honesty and steadiness, and as they regard themselves as worthily rich and essentially enlightened, they can hardly be drawn away, as a class, from the political ideals of commerce. Taken by themselves into an innocent mind, these ideals are not unattractive. Unattached circulating wealth, such as commerce accumulates, sheer invisible credit or money in the bank, acts as a sort of lubricant, giving a magic power to the mind. It opens up possibilities, uncrams old prejudices, stimulates the arts by the shock of the exotic, and creates a floating, idle, talkative, rationalistic atmosphere of universal information and easy confidence. Information and agility, left to themselves, are morally important, but they never exist unsupported by elementary interests and passions, which may use enlightenment as an aid in their animal career. So buttressed and armed, and so enveloped in polite sophistry, human nature seems to justify itself in its ways. It becomes civilized, but its civilizations runs no deeper than an intellectual draping of moral confusion. The highlights of history, the ages of Pericles, Augustus, Louis XIV, or Queen Victoria, mark the turn of some tide of the flood when material enterprise has clothed itself in some sort of science or art, and is only beginning to decay inwardly and to withdraw the sap of life from those arts or sciences. I have seen, after the Victorian era, the commercial deluge which covered the earth rise into the air and accelerate invention and motion so as completely to envelop mankind. This has been accompanied by a sudden, though unconfessed, collapse of the theoretic and artistic convictions which, in the 19th century, kept the polite capitalist world in confidence. Conviction has deserted the civilized mind, and a good conscience exists only at the extreme left, in that crudely diluted mass of plethoric humanity, which perhaps forms the substance of another material tide, destined to sweep away the remnants of our old vanities, and to breed new vanities of its own. Or perhaps the revolution we are undergoing may turn out to be less profound and cataclysmic than the communists have undertaken to make it. They are loudly heralded revolution, they internally wither away, and believe, certainly not a final Elysium, by some reassertion of national, military, or religious positivism, some specific type or types of human order and virtue, comparable to those that diversified the recorded and the unrecorded past.